But we want to begin our coverage with Eyewitness News anchor Mike Marza. He is live in Times Square with a look at COVID's lasting impact on all of our lives. Michael?
Bill and Sade, the people have returned to Times Square, which is pretty incredible considering I stood in this very spot back in 2020, 5 years ago. And boy, was it eerie and quiet right after the shutdown began. It was so quiet you could hear the bristles of a brush cleaning the empty street. Of course, it is impossible to wipe away all of those memories, both good and bad. A time when the world changed forever.
Several breaking developments tonight in the coronavirus outbreak.
When the streets emptied, there will be more cases of the coronavirus here in New York. In buildings shuttered. The wail of sirens and the 7 p.m. claps for those essential workers echoed from Staten Island all the way to the Bronx. Now, 5 years later, nearly 65 million tourists visited the city last year. The crossroads of the world now clogged again, with more than 300,000 visitors a day. Hundreds of businesses have opened here. The lessons we learned 5 years ago are still being lived today.
We've seen restaurateurs who didn't open one restaurant but have opened up 2 restaurants in Times Square since the pandemic.
After being told to stay home for so long, it's been hard to lure some people to leave. It's where they bought Peloton exercise bikes and were forced to cut their own hair. Or not.
I go like this, and it gets wild.
And binge watch shows like Tiger King.
It's not every day that a zookeeper went to prison for murder for hire.
Or expanded their family. 23 million Americans, that's 20% of households, adopted a dog or a cat during the pandemic. And of course, we all spent way more time online, learning what to do with our video call backdrops and learning about this thing called Zoom, something that would revolutionize education and the workforce, perhaps forever.
I think hybrid is here to stay. So I think giving people the flexibility to work more flexibly, at least one day a week, isn't changing it.
33% of Americans now have a fully remote job. 43% are hybrid. With major companies, even the federal government, now ordering employees back to the office. The Sawa's family rode out the pandemic on the east side. Did you remember the mask?
Yeah, sometimes I had to go outside wearing a mask.
The impacts on students continue. Those old school snow days are now often replaced with remote classwork days, but it's deeper than that. New York City grappling with low attendance and spikes in anxiety and depression.
And for a lot of kids, for sure, and certainly our younger kids, being online for learning was a disaster. But for some of our older kids, it worked pretty well.
Judy Ramirez's 9-year-old daughter is being held back a grade.
So now she have a lot of problems to learning math.
At Elmhurst Hospital, once the epicenter for the pandemic, with thousands of patients and where hundreds of people died, it's now screening for mental health.
Well, I think I have depression. It's no longer that stigma.
But after 5 years, one of the most indelible aspects of the pandemic remains the same: the power of unity.
We are resilient as New Yorkers. We're resilient as people.
Foot traffic here in Times Square is about 15% less than the record-setting year of 2019, but the Times Square Alliance predicts that will be surpassed sometime next year, which is pretty remarkable considering where we were 5 years ago.